Okay. So for most of you that play Counter-Strike, you'll be familiar, hopefully, with how it works in terms of like doing KZ. Like how do you get how do you get a long jump in KZ? It's very similar, with a slight difference. Because in KZ, what you'll do is you'll kind of do this turn, but you'll kind of let go of actually, I'm trying to think here right now. So I'm imagining I'm in Counter-Strike. You kind of let go of the strafe key. Or actually, no, it's the other way around. By the way, you let go of one of the keys, forwards or the strafe key. I actually, for some reason, my brain is broken right now. It's not working. Anyways, so it's basically the same kind of thing when you start your jump. And you can kind of practice it by just, like when I'm moving forwards, you can see that it's like 320. And then if I like press the strafe key and turn around, shit's happening, right? So kind of the idea is that, if you're turning, you can see it goes to like, 3 or maybe 400 there. You just want to kind of get the jump in at the same time, right? And then you can see I got to 436 on that jump. I think actually you can get to like 520. I think it's like, a baller circle jump. At least in Quake 3, I think you could get like up to 520. Or maybe I'm thinking about Quake World. So many Quakes. But that's your your starting jump, right? And you can kind of practice it by just like kind of just moving around here and ultimately as well, like when you're thinking about how practical things should be in the game, then it's generally this 90-degree turn. That's like your circle jump is this 90-degree turn to the direction that you're facing, and you're pressing forward and the strafe key that corresponds to the direction you're turning into. So I'm pressing forward and then the left strafe key, and then I jump at the same time. So that's your circle jump. That's your first jump. So after that point, it just kind of stays. It stays along that theme in the sense that if I've made this jump, I want to move my cursor to the left and then keep holding left. So jump, and you can even keep just doing this. You can see I'm just gaining speed all the time, and it's the same principle in the sense that like if I'm like turning with the mouse and everything like that, I'm getting more speed. So just play around with it, and you can watch good players as well, and you'll very quickly see how the technique works. And so the idea is that if you want to do like single beat strafing as it's known, which is generally a little bit more practical and more of a general skill, then you switch the strafe key and the direction at the same time. So we get our circle jump, and then like right, left, right, and you can see I'm gaining speed all the time. And every time my crosshair goes to the left, I'm pressing the left strafe key. Every time it goes to the right, I'm pressing the right strafe key, and I'm always holding forwards. And there is like an optimal angle to give you the most acceleration, but you need to worry about that too much. And you can see there's lots of different ways to do it. Like for example, here I'm just doing this is absolutely really weird, and unless you do race mode, you probably will never learn this. But this is called half beat strafing. It's like it's really weird because if you're quick, you would notice that I'm actually just going diagonal in one direction and then just right with the other direction there. So it's really weird. But anyways, you can do something that's called a 2-beat strafe, and so that's going to be like the 1-beat strafe, but instead of alternating on every jump like this, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be alternating every 2 jumps. So it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and that's another thing that you can do, and that works as well. So there's like a lot of freedom in that sense, for your strafing needs. And that's kind of how it works. And, you can learn all these techniques, and then you can mix and match them as you need them. And the other thing I think that's worth noting in movement is something called clipping, where if you are moving at the correct at a specific speed, there is a specific angle you can cut through an object. Is I guess one way to explain it. So here you can see that I'm actually like going through the corner of this object. But you have to time it right so that your jump kind of lands right before it. It's gonna be right before, and depending on the speed, you can take either more thinner or like more thick cuts of the object. So if you're going extremely fast, you might be able to land here and go straight through. And you'll see this like not so much really in game, but you'll see it in like defrag movies and stuff. This is really useful, as you can see, like because you can kind of more cleanly get around objects, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of something that you always want to be thinking about, is like getting used to this idea. And again, if you watch good players, you'll see them be doing this shit all the time. You can clip through like basically like more or less anything. I can clip through this, for example, like just like that, just a tiny one, little baby one. Anyway, so those are some basics with the movement. I don't know if that really actually helps anyone, but it's one of those things where you need to kind of just get in there and try it. But just by seeing people doing it, I think that should be enough in helping you figure it out. Then you can have loads of fun being a strafe master over time. And there will be something called strafe pads that will come into the game, and that's like a really good way to learn stuff, where you basically get like these pads where they'll have like a gap between each pad. So you gotta basically, you have to like learn how to accelerate to actually make the jumps work. Otherwise you fail. You can't make it to the end of the strafe pads, and then they increase in difficulty as you get better. So in terms of the weapons and stuff for people, the weapons are obviously very simple, but how you might want to use them in fights is can be quite specific. And if you're looking at modes like Wipeout and all this kind of stuff, you're always trying to get the damage, like a number advantage over your opponent in terms of the damage, of course. So there's lots of, like, before going into some of those more advanced ideas as to how you might want to do that. Generally speaking, like obviously the rocket's like a projectile weapon, so you want to be aiming it at the ground. Generally speaking, like if you try to go for a direct, you're basically creating a lot of risk, because unless you hit like a direct shot, you're gonna just do 0 damage. So rather do like 27 damage there than miss completely, or rather do 40 something there than miss completely. So it's about kind of obviously learning to kind of get the depth, understand how to like aim at their feet basically, to do the most splash damage possible, and that's like what you're thinking about. And Quake is like very, 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 very much about predicting your opponent in terms of movement. Obviously, like in Counter-Strike, another element there is that's very different, is that you're also always moving, because you're always trying to dodge when you're shooting. You never really want to make yourself an easy target for them. You always want to be dodging optimally if you can. And as a quick side note to that, the better you get at dodging, generally speaking, the better you'll understand how to fight people, especially good players, because good players will be dodging really effectively. And by that I mean that there'll be like there's usually a meta to the dodging, in the sense that like if I shoot a railgun against a good player, they know, as I mentioned this earlier, they know when their railgun refreshes. They know the next spot you're going to take a shot, which means that in that precise timing, they're going to be going, oh, and then they know that they're going to lead you into, like, I'll do a really obvious example. So, they shoot you shoot a rail at them. Let's say I'm the opponent, and let's say, you miss, whatever, it doesn't really matter. In the timing in which you're reloading, I might make a really, really kind of obvious movement. I'm like swinging all this way, and then at the precise timing when your gun is reloaded, I change direction. And so that's obviously to kind of throw you off. So I'm feigning a direction there. So what happens with good players is what you'll do is you'll wait with your shots. You make your timing unpredictable. So if they try to use this technique, what happens is they'll commit to a different direction just after the timing that your gun reloads. And then you, as the guy that's trying to shoot them, you'll actually, by waiting, now get a really easy shot, because now they're committing to a different direction. They can't easily uncommit to that direction in that particular moment. The same principle goes with rockets at close fights. With rockets, I would say take your time. It's better with a rocket because obviously the shots take a while to land, because there's some travel time, and on top of that, there's the reload, and on top of that, what if you only do 20 damage with the first rocket, right? It's better to try to like understand where your opponent's moving before trying to take the shot, and trying to actually aim it, not just like, I see them, I'm shooting them all the time. Like try to really figure out which way are they going to be moving, and also try to figure out, based on the fight, what are they thinking in the fight? Like how hurt are they in this fight? Are they losing the fight? Are they going to be wanting to try to disengage from this fight somehow? Or for example, if we want to make things a little bit more complicated, you can kind of trick people by actually, like, if they expect, for example, you to be like leaving the fight, or if they expect you to be right left dodging, you can dodge forwards, because as we know, this is the depth thing. So if I shoot here and my opponent's dodged forwards, then I'm going to shoot behind him, and then he's really close in my face, and then if he's got a shotgun or a rocket or something, he might get a really easy shot there on me and make things really awkward, and then put me in a spot where I'm in a really bad shape in terms of like what my next move is. Or it could be a spot where like you move forwards with your LG and you force someone to switch to a rocket. So now they're like, okay, I'm going to take a rocket fight against you, and you jump backwards. And now it's really hard for them to hit a rocket, and you're back on the LG, and you're getting all this LG damage that they can't return because you've now committed them into a gun switch animation, and they have to switch back, and now they've lost like half a second, maybe full second of damage where you're hitting them, like stuff like that. Like that's kind of like what starts to happen, because it's all about getting the damage. And for example, as well, one of the great things about rockets is that you can shoot them from like around corners. And so if you're having an LG fight and you go around to a corner, you can switch to a rocket and then see what they do. Like, are they going to be switching? Are they going to stay on the LG? Are they actually going to like hold back? Or are they going to switch to the rocket too? So if they switch to the rocket too, it's that situation I mentioned before. You've just committed them to a weapon switch, being like, can jump backwards, make their lives extremely difficult in hitting rockets, whereas I'm going to hit all of the LG. And so the LG is like the consistent option for damage. Like I always know that like I can get some consistent damage from this. You know, it's like six damage a tick. So that's consistent damage. The rocket's risky because the rocket can miss, but the rocket's burst damage. So that's also like a huge plus, because again, like I can shoot it from behind a corner. It's a way that I can get back into the fight in terms of having a damage advantage on my opponent. And the same principle goes for the railgun as well in terms of burst damage. Oh, thanks for the sub, Sebuster 223. I appreciate it, man. So those are some like basic fighting mechanics, like, you know, or fighting decision making, in-fight decision making. There we go, in-fight decision making. I've known him since like 2003 or 4. Richard Hagg. I played on pro teams with him and stuff like that. So we've known each other for a long time. I wouldn't say we're like best friends or something, but we're on friendly terms and stuff. And, so yeah, those are some basic decisions within fight aiming, and I think honestly, because it is really simple, that kind of covers it. But the complexity comes with the situation. The complexity comes with the map architecture. Like there are certain angles, for example. This is the same thing in CS that you guys you should understand this idea. If I'm going to be aiming at this guy, right, and he's going left, right. If he's dodging really predictably, okay, sure, it's easy to track this. It's really easy. He's just going right and left. However, if the guy's like jiggling, because he effectively moves more quickly, as far as, you know, my perception is, from this angle, right? If I move here, look how like I have to move my crosshair a lot less to actually actively hit him. So this angle is far more favorable than this angle in that sense. Like if you understand why. And this is the same principle in Counter-Strike as well. It's exactly the same idea in Counter-Strike. In every game that has this kind of aiming, like these, I mean, any 3D game basically, it's a principle of the 3D world, you know, one could say. So angles like this with the LG can be really strong sometimes. So it's something to bear in mind. Like this is a fight where I feel like I will hit more consistently than if, you know, if I'm in another fight. And if he tries to jiggle me here, then it's really easy to hit him. If he tries to jiggle me here when the, you know, the normal strafing is maybe like longer, and he's like doing like a big strafe and then like little jiggles and a big strafe and little jiggles to throw you off, then that's going to be harder to consistently hit this person. And also, by the way, like there will be some opponents you'll be familiar enough with that you'll understand what aiming styles are a bit more difficult for them, and you'll be able to throw them off a little bit more. So that's like another thing to understand as well, and to think about in certain spots. I think this is something that's, you won't necessarily think about this as much in something like Clan Arena, but when we're talking about team deathmatch, when we're talking about duel, these become really important principles, because especially in duel, I have to say, because in duel you'll have a small map where it's just 2 people, and you'll be very commonly running into the same fights. So knowing which of those fights is good or bad, and like which fights you can take, whereby like if I'm in an out of control position, but I know I can take this fight, even if I have less than my opponent, I know I'm going to hit like every single bit of LG, and he's going to have a hard time hitting me. And so that kind of effectively changes the outcome. Even though I have less stack, I've mitigated that by having a better position, which means that I have almost a fair fight, or maybe even a favorable fight with the worst stack, right? And so that can bring me back into the game. So knowing about things like that is important too. Because you asked me to go over like guns and stuff like that, gun mechanics and everything, and Obviously, the rail is an interesting one because there's lots of different ways to shoot a rail. You can you can just flick at people, and flicking is pretty valuable in Quake because models move so quickly. So sometimes it can be kind of hard to like track them, and also sometimes it's nicer to just react instantly than have like this duel where like you saw the duels happening with me in Clan Arena where it's like we're like long range and we're both like kind of peeking each other and we're both kind of trying to track each other and stuff like that, and the aim is on each other, and all of a sudden now because I'm having to take time on the shot, this guy gets to get in my head. He gets to like dodge. He gets to try to throw me off. He gets to time my rail shots and gets to play the terrain, all that kind of stuff. Whereas, if I'm in a spot where, I've just seen this guy and, I can just go for a quick flick, obviously that's great. But the problem is that that's kind of a little bit harder to do when they're kind of actively dodging you. So you need to be able to do basically everything. Like sometimes you need to be able to track them, especially if they're not aiming at you, because there are those situations where you play CTF or Clan Arena or Team Deathmatch, the team modes, where maybe they're fighting somebody else and they're not actually reacting to you. So in those situations, being able to flick and being able to kind of just have good tracking aim is quite important with the railgun. And you probably saw me like tracking with the rail in a lot of spots, as opposed to like just flicking and just to make the shot more, a guaranteed hit. There's an interesting thing with the rail as well, actually, which I always called it like a team deathmatch skill. Because in team deathmatch, at least in the old school team deathmatch, you'd often find yourself in spots where you'd have not the right weapon for the job. So you'd have like a spot where you have a railgun in close range, and you'd have to do like it's like how we say like the opposite, like battle sniper with an AWP in CS:GO. Like it's the same thing. It's like you're not supposed to use the AWP like close range, but some players are like extremely good at it, and in these panic situations. And the rail is kind of similar because if you miss a shot, it's like very punishing if you miss a shot close range. So and that's something that is worth bearing in mind. Like it's another skill that needs to be improved. And one way that I actually look at it, generally speaking, is a weapon that you commonly use close range is a shotgun. And I would always say that to people, aim the shotgun like you would aim the rail. Aim the rail in close range like you'd aim the shotgun. It's kind of the same shit, really. But the thing is there's more pressure when you got a rail as opposed to a shotgun. So that's kind of one of the things that changes that element for people. Right. Did I sufficiently cover the weapons? Because obviously you have the plasma as well. The plasma is an interesting one because obviously it can do huge amounts of damage. And it's basically like, I don't really know the best way to like describe the technique for it, because it's kind of just like a lightning gun that's also a rocket launcher in terms of the projectile. And actually historically, in some Quakes, like I think it's actually Quake World, I want to say the super nail gun and the rockets are the same speed, so that's like a good kind of guideline in that game. But yeah, it also in some of the Quakes where there's a lot of knockback, you would actually aim at the feet when you're fighting people, and that's because of the splash damage. So you can see see how I bob up when I do this. Obviously it's the thing that allows me to have this beautiful ability to kind of plasma climb, right? It's the splash damage. So aiming at someone's feet, like again, it depends. I don't know how this works in Diabotical yet because I haven't really experimented a lot, but historically it was the case that when you aim at people's feet, it's like the rocket. It's the rocket launcher thing. It's like I want to hit at least some splash damage. If I shoot like this, I could just miss them entirely. So if I'm in like a straight up fight like this, it's quite cool to try to hit the ground, and also it disrupts their dodging because it creates this like bobbing effect, and they start sliding around, and that creates the problems for them when they're trying to dodge you. I don't know how effective that is in this game just yet, but that's historically been a thing that has been present in basically all of the Quakes. Obviously this is not a Quake, but it is kind of a Quake. So yeah, I can definitely upload that. So is there anything else you guys want me to talk about before I go back into just